Jim Salisbury. Jim, we'll pick it up right there with what we were talking about. Johan Rojas, Kevin Long, the Phillies R&D department, they put in work this offseason to fix some holes in his swing and get a better approach at the plate. It looks as though he kind of had to go through the darkness of overthinking for a while, and now he's back to just kind of attacking a little bit. And he smoked one last night, 99.7 miles an hour. And when that speed gets on the pass, man, what an asset to this team he can be.
Yeah, and you mentioned overthinking. I mean, to me, that's kind of an enemy of good play. You want to have everything second nature. You want to be reacting, and it just looks like he's reacting better. He looked kind of mechanical in spring training, maybe in the first few days of the season. Just looks like he's kind of coming to peace with some of these adjustments, making them part of him, part of his game, and it's just kind of showing out naturally. The swing looks a little shorter, looks a little more natural. I think he's picking up spin better. And like you said, when he gets on the bases, he's dangerous. Put the ball in play. If he hits a ground ball to shortstop,
yeah,
like if the shortstop has to move 3 feet into the hole, there's a pretty good chance he might beat it out. So contact is really important with a guy like that. I like watching him run, watching him play. This is a tangent, but I actually saw Sammy Sosa, and I am not making any type of a comparison here other than this.
Oh boy.
I actually saw Sammy. I was a fan at a game at Fenway Park. I think it was 1988. I'm sorry. And I saw Sammy Sosa's first big league home run for the Texas Rangers against Roger Clemens.
Wow.
And he was here, short to the ball, quick, boom, right up in the net. They used to have a net above the Green Monster. My point is that body at whatever age Johan Rojas is, 22 or 3, is so similar to what young Sammy Sosa had. A very similar body at like 20 or 21 years old. Obviously, that's the end of my comparison. I'm just saying the body type.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into what happened down the road or anything. The body type reminds me so much of a young Sammy Sosa. Obviously, very athletic. Rojas has played really good defense, and it's just really good to see the progress. It's got to be really great for his psyche, because when you make adjustments and now you have success, that's where confidence comes from. And they're on a 7-game win streak, and he has contributed.
Yeah,
it takes the whole team, and he's been a big part of it.
Yeah. No, you make a great point. 23-year-old Johan Rojas with some similarities physically.
Born in 2000.
To Sammy Sosa. But as you mentioned, he's a big part of the overall improvements we've seen offensively from this team. I mean, you have 4 straight games of 7 or more runs scored. You're shutting teams out. You're smashing home runs. Nick Castellanos continues to be the only one that people are, frustrated with, but we see him working out of his slump. I mean, the last 3 games, aside Sunday, he wasn't great, but last night and Saturday, scoring runs, getting hits, getting on base. What have you liked most about how the progression of the offense has been, especially Nick Castellanos, as he's also working himself to give you better at-bats?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing I liked about the offense is I think over the 7-game win streak, they're averaging like 5+ runs a game, like close to 6 runs a game. They're scoring runs where they went into that Colorado series ranked last in the league in runs per game. They've moved up significantly. So they're just kind of resembling the offense we all thought they'd be. They weren't getting a lot of extra base hits early. Now they are. And you know what I attribute that to? Just kind of baseball. Sometimes it takes a little time. Baseball's a game of streaks. They've gotten more at-bats under their belt coming out of spring training. There was some guys who had the flu, some guys who were down. Maybe their at-bats were down a little bit in spring training, but they've seen more pitches. It just takes time to be ready to hit major league pitching. And it also, there's an element, and you'll never prove this mathematically, but I've always believed hitting is contagious. You see one guy do it, they all kind of join in. So that's kind of what I'm seeing for this team now. They've gotten more at bats, being a little more selective, not as much chase, pounding the ball more. And you know what? We knew it would come because the track records are too good. And you talk about the track records, Nick Castellanos is he's showing slow signs of coming around. And I'm going to give you a prediction. I think he hits a home run tonight. I think he gets off the schneid tonight. Facing a lefty, he hits lefties. This guy can give up some home runs. He saw him early in the season. And, Cincinnati is a place that Nick has always hit the ball well. He played there. I think he gets in a good mindset there. So I think tonight he hits a home run. You'll have something to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
I
if he doesn't hit a home run, I don't want to hear it.
This tape will be destroyed if he doesn't hit one, Jim. I promise. But Alec Boehm agrees with you. He was talking the other day, and he said hitting's contagious. And he said when you see one guy start to do it, it makes you want to step up and do it. And it's baseball's a weird sport, and sometimes just seeing success of your teammates leads to success on your own. Now, one guy I want to talk to you about is my dear friend Ranger. Last Tuesday when we talked, Jim, he was a plus 10,000 odds on Bet Parks to be your National League Cy Young. Currently, he's down around plus 1,500 or 2,000. The two starts since we've talked, the guy is on an absolute tear. Jim, you've covered Phillies pitchers for a long time. His 25 shutout consecutive innings is the longest since Cliff Lee did it with 30 and 2/3 innings in 2011. I don't think the shoe's going to drop, but can he really be this good for a majority of a season? Does he have that in him?
He has the ability to be very good for an entire season. This is obviously peak performance.
Sure.
There will be some leveling out. It's baseball. The other team is trying hard too. He's a human being. Some nights you're just not as good as you are other nights. But he's shown pockets of brilliance before in his career. And there's no reason he can't do it for 6 months now. And hopefully for the Phillies' sake, 7 months. He's reached that level of experience. He's reached that level of know-how, level of confidence, and probably most importantly, that level of good health where I think he's really ready to deliver 6 really good months. Confidence is so huge. He's got a deep pitch mix, and it just seems like he feels like he can throw an effective pitch with any one of them when he needs to. I was almost going to say throw a strike with any one of them when he needs to, but there are times he's trying not to throw a strike. He's trying to start it in the zone and get it off the plate and get a chase, and he's very good at that too. So enjoy what you're watching because, like I said, this is a peak performance, but I think he can be very, very good. And the longest streak since Cliff Lee had that 31, and I say it all the time, how much he reminds me of Cliff Lee in terms of his pitching style and his mental makeup and his attitude. Very carefree, nothing bothers him. You see some pitchers and they stress over every little thing. Every little detail has to be perfect. It's just, everybody has a different personality. Cliff Lee was like, grip it and rip it. Rangers just kind of grip it and rip it. If they were golfers, they would be grip it and rip it guys, neither one of them is the max effort on the mound. They're pure pitchers, but he reminds me a lot of Cliff Lee, especially sometimes he throws that cutter in on the hands and then he can get you to chase that changeup away. It kind of sets up that pitch. And the way he feels his position also reminds me of Cliff Lee.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. They both, are very good athletes. Ranger's a very good athlete. He was an outfielder as a kid, a soccer player. I think I wrote a story once about how he ended up on the mound they were short a player. He was playing for a town league down in where he grew up in Venezuela, and they put him on the mound. And they said, that was pretty good. You want to do it again? So he ended up on the mound, but good athlete. And because he's not so max effort, he's not falling off the mound. He's ending up in a good fielding position. He can make a play like he did last night. So he's been a treat to watch. The whole staff's been a treat to watch. 1 through 5, and we'll get to watch another one tonight. And Christopher Sanchez has done a very good job.
Yeah, and it's talking about the entire pitching staff. Last one for me, Jim. Over the last 7-game winning streak, the Phillies starters have a .52 ERA. They've got the second best mark across baseball right now with a 2.20 ERA for the entire season. And there have been comparisons, as we're talking about Cliff Lee, there have been comparisons for this starting group to that 2011 rotation, Doc, Cliff, Cole, Is this one of the best it's only April, but is this one of the best rotations that you've seen in starting pitching for the Phillies when you look over the history of great pitchers that we've had in this club?
I'd have to dig into that. Certainly for the last 7 games it has, but that 2011 team was really that 2011 starting pitching staff was really special when you consider the names and the reputations and then how they delivered. I mean, Halladay and Lee were Cy Young winners, and they pitched to that level that season. They were in the hunt. Hamels, outstanding. Roy Oswalt ended up getting hurt, but they had contributions. I remember from Vance Worley and Joe Blanton. Long story short, that rotation got a lot of ballyhoo coming into the season. They really lived up to it. Now, like I said, they had some guys step up after some injuries, but all in all, that rotation ranked up there with some of the great ones. So this rotation has to do it for more than 3 weeks, for more than a dynamic 7-game run. But do they have the capability to be very good over a 6-month season and hopefully over 7 months? Absolutely. There's a lot of talent there. And they're not one-trick ponies. They're not just all rearing back and trying to pump high fastballs by people. You got Wheeler who can do that, but he's also a guy who can come at you with, he's developed that splitter. He's got the cutter, the sweeper, the slider, the changer. He's just breaking ball. You look at Nola with the full pitch mix. You look at Ranger with the full pitch mix. These are guys who are going 4 deep in their pitching. And the comparison I would make is it's like a football offense. If you run the ball all the time, you can figure out a way to snuff it out. If you pass the ball all the time, figure out a way to defend it. But if you have that diversified attack, you become much, much more difficult to play against. And same way for a hitter. And they're getting a lot of soft contact, especially Ranger, especially Wheeler, getting a lot of chase. They're just really pitching well. Can they measure up as a great one? Absolutely. But it takes consistency, and that's the big challenge in this game because every night is different. It's
Jim,
such a grind over 6 months, and consistency is such a great attribute in this game. The guys who can do it over and over and over almost every night, those are your champions. So there's a lot of talent on this team, and I think they're capable of doing it over 6 months. Time will tell.
Jim, the pitching and hitting coach to me is always a fascinating discussion because sometimes they get overpraised when things are going well. They get overhated on when things are going poorly. But Matt Gelb had a great piece on The Athletic today talking about JT's perspective in catching this staff. How much credit is Caleb Cotham owed here because of what you mentioned and Matt talks about in the piece? Each of these guys can throw 4 to 6 pitches at any moment on either side of the plate at any time. And when you see a guy like Zach Wheeler, who's on the doorstep of a Cy Young, develop a new pitch, what's Caleb Cotham's role in this? How much credit does he actually deserve? Because they're all doing it.
Yeah, I think he deserves a great deal of credit. You just look at the numbers, you look at the performance. You talk to a guy like Zach Wheeler, who he should have won the Cy Young, 3 years ago? He's an all-star. He's a true number one. I think we talked about it before, that there's probably fewer number ones in the game than you think there is, than that wear the label. He's a real number one. He will praise Caleb Cotham to the hilt. He will say he's made a difference in his career, Zach will. Last year, they're always like the mad scientists. They're always tinkering with something. Last year, they put a little change into his into the slider or the cutter. They're similar pitches, but it kind of morphed into more of a sweeper. Well, he took a step forward with the pitch. He got better. This year, it's the splitter. So Zach Wheeler has come to Philadelphia and gotten better mid-career, and he will tell you that Caleb Cotham's had a big impact. I know he really respects him and really likes working with him. Look at I think Christopher Sanchez is another example, a guy who's done a lot of developing at the big league level. So, that's hats off to the coaching staff. And I think another unsung area is just the way their pitching brain trust. Caleb Cotham, Brian Kaplan, they keep these guys healthy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Last year we saw them kind of drop in a sixth starter a little bit in the middle, kind of at a good time. Helps keep them healthy. I think that's a big part of it. So, um, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We give way, even managers, when a team doesn't
Yes.
Sure.
play well, they take way too much heat, in my opinion. You got to perform on the field. Um, pitching coaches, hitting coaches, I think take way too much heat, but it is, Kevin, you look at Johan Rojas is really grasping things. We can see it in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the guys that aren't, if the guys that are working with him,
Sure.
they deserve some credit. The guys that are doing the behind the scenes work and making the suggestions and making the tweaks.
Yeah.
Same for the pitching coach. So yeah, it's there's no limit to what you can achieve as a team and an organization if you don't mind who gets the credit. So the athlete, the pitching coach, the hitting coach, the manager, they all work together to try to put their best foot forward that night at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. So last one for you, Jim. Tomorrow might be the last look we get at Spencer Turnbull as a starter for a little while. Do you expect him to have the same type of success coming out of the pen in that middle relief type of role as he was having as a starter?
Well, I don't think it'll be the last time. At some point, you'll see him start a game again. No major league team goes through a season with 5 and 6. Very seldom.
Sure.
At some point they might try to optimize some rest somewhere. So I think we will see him in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, it's for the right reasons. They want to get somebody a rest and just give him a spot start. Hopefully, it's not for injury or anything like that. But do I expect the same? Why not? At some level, pitching is pitching.
Sure.
I used to have this conversation with Brett Myers all the time. He went from starter to reliever to starter to reliever. At some point, pitching is pitching. Throw quality strikes, change speeds, locate, keep the hitter off balance. I know there's a different mindset coming out of the bullpen than there is starting. I know a lot of guys prefer starting, but it takes 9 innings to get through a game, and sometimes, okay, you didn't start, but you're going to pitch the 6th and 7th. You got to do a quality job that night. You got to do a good job that night. I would think he has a chance to continue to pitch well because hopefully he's developed some confidence from this really nice run he's been on, and hopefully he'll continue that solid run in Cincinnati for what maybe probably shapes up as his last start for a while. I would expect Walker is going to go on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That would allow them to break up the two lefties. Very solid move. But it takes the entire roster, and Spencer Turnbull has proven that he's a contributor, and he can be a contributor throughout that entire season. He's shown that he's got the ability, and like I said, it looks like he's built some confidence. And why not have a really good start, on your way out in Cincinnati, and
Exactly.
you put it in the back of their mind. They always got something to think about.
Yeah.
And it also goes on Taijuan Walker's mind that they have a pretty good option here. I need to deliver.
Exactly.
That internal competition is within a roster. I'm not talking enemies, but the way you look at the way this rotation pushes each other, they all want to one up each other.
Sure.
That internal competition is really healthy. Sometimes on maybe a back end starter or a 25th, a reserve player. Sometimes somebody nipping at your heels a little bit, trying to take your job. That can be a really great motivator, and it can enhance your performance. So it's all good in terms of that for me.